A, that we are observing this program to commemorate the memory of Dr. APJ Kalam and the Pokhran, which is closely associated with him. So incidentally, we have had opportunity to be associated with Dr. Kalam as a scientist, as a researcher, and there was much to learn from him. And since me and many others like me have adopted the principle of trying to learn at least one new thing from him, incidentally, up to the last day that he lived, we were learning from him. In fact, on that fateful day when he was to deliver his lecture, while actually he passed away doing so, we had also, in a way, partnered that program at IIM Shillong, where we have now set up a chair in his name, called the APJ Kalam chair. And he landed in Guwahati. It was too late to take the chopper, but as a person of commitment as he was, he decided to go by road. And then I think it was a great blessing that he passed away doing what he loved the best. He was standing on the podium like me and suddenly collapsed. The moment I received a call there, I thought I was the first one. So they were then moving into the hospital, but the doctor there said that he is possibly no more. But I think for all of us who are into the business of research and startups, one important thing which I noticed, because after he left Rashtrapati Bhavan, he got into medical research, so that's how he got closely associated. He was actually working on oncogens. So I think one which applies to all of us and that keeps our research instinct alive all the while is his curiosity. And I remember just a few days before he passed away, we were at the Pragati Mela. He loved addressing students. So this was a program of 10 plus 12 students. And suddenly he asked me, "Doc, why is it that some of these boys are looking taller than the others?" That was a childlike curiosity because he was seeing them there. So then I also carefully tried to spot out. And then I told him, "No, sir, it's not that. Actually, this is a stepwise arrangement. So the boys who appear taller are actually standing at a step higher than the earlier ones." But this was something very innocuous. Hardly is noticed. Even if you notice, you don't bother about it. हमारा क्या लेना देना लंबा है के नीचे है. But that was his scientific itch, which is called itch. He wanted to actually find an answer to that. So I think that is something that is a carry-home message for each one of us who is into this business of innovation, technology, and I'm glad that we are associating this day. The second reason why I feel personally delighted, I said we would time this ceremonial launch with this National Technology Day, is this booklet which you've seen just now being released called Scientific Social Responsibilities. So it was my request and I'm glad that it was timed with this day. And fortunately we have in Prime Minister Modi a person who is a very great resource person also. Each time you are there, he will give you some new cue. And incidentally, the idea for the first time came from none less than him. Honorable Prime Minister was addressing the Indian Science Congress in 2017. And then he dropped the idea. Could we have something like this? Like, since I'm also dealing with DOPT, he was addressing the Independence Day in 2014 and suddenly he said, "Can we do away with the interviews so that we do with it?" So he just comes out with an idea, but if you work on it, it's a great transformation. So I think for many of us, it holds importance also because it is an opportunity for us to give back to the society what we got from the society. And when we give back, you have a beautiful English phrase, you give back either in coin or in kind. आप किसी से पैसा ले लेते हैं तो बाद में पैसे नहीं देने को रहते तो अपनी घड़ी वापस करते हैं, लौटाते हैं. ये कहने में देते हैं. Here we have an opportunity to pay back in coin through the knowledge and the infrastructure that we have as members of the scientific fraternity. And I think it is a beautiful extension of that idea of paying back through money, which is the corporate social responsibility, the CSR, where it is mandatory for certain corporate houses to allocate an earmark of certain amount of their earnings and their profits for the welfare of the society. Here, I think following the same cue, we are adopting this in the sharing of knowledge and sharing of our infrastructure. And I hope, because some of us have already been doing it. In fact, before I came to the government, if not less, I might have conducted not less than for about 5,000 or more free health camps across the country, beginning from Leh, Ladakh to up to Mysore and covering almost all the states of the country. And that's because we were a part of the group which was engaged in this. But if it becomes a kind of a social responsibility obligatory to each one of us, I think it would lead to a huge transformation. Now, how we translate it on the ground is something that we can work out. Our scientists can go and deliver lectures for public awareness in the degree institutions. And since we also have in abundance our research equipments, some of which are not adequately utilized. We utilize them for the projects that we have in hand. Sometimes they remain unutilized for a part of time, and then sometimes they also, lose out their validity because the next generation equipment comes in, as it often happens in the scientific pursuits. So therein also we could engage. How best to do that, I think, is something that we can. And meanwhile, the Department of Science has also formulated a draft, which Dr. Jitendra Singh was sharing with me, called SIRIMAN, the acronym standing for Scientific Research Infrastructure Sharing, Maintenance and Network Guidelines through stakeholder consultation. So I think we made a beginning by this launch of SSR guidelines, and we would carry it forward in the best possible way that we can do. I think once we start off, it should not appear to be only mandatory, it should come as a natural urge also. I am saying so because about 20 years back or 15 years back, we tried this experiment with the medical fraternity. We tried to suggest to the teachers in medical fraternity to at least spend 1 hour every month, if not every month, at least once in a quarter, going out for a public awareness lecture or going out for a lecture of that sort in a higher education institution. It happened for a while, but I think later on they didn't enjoy it. They gave up, and we didn't pursue it. Ironically, on the other hand, public awareness lectures by the scientific fraternity are held when they are sponsored by a corporate house. So I think that is something which is not very flattering. So if you have to get over that, also I think you should do that. Because I've seen a number of public awareness lectures happening, particularly in the medical fraternity. A big pharma house sponsors it because they are having in the pipeline one of the products dealing with that subject. For example, you are coming up with a product dealing with diabetes, you start a public awareness program among the public. And that's more of a. So I think we should stick to the spirit of social responsibility rather than economically driven social responsibility. This sometimes happens because I've been part of this. I am quite familiar with the virtues and vices of what we go through. So that's why I'm trying to spell this out. And the second part, as far as the technology awards is concerned, I think the highlight this afternoon I was noticing is that among the awards given today, 7 were the startups and the others were the women entrepreneurs. Now both of these categories are very high on the priority of Prime Minister Modi and also the priority of the Ministry of Science and Technology. And Some of these are also dealing with some of the very futuristic themes, because we are going to deal with the themes like artificial intelligence, the digital health, space, oceanography to come with. And I think as a whole, if you ask me in a single sentence, I think the message that should go out of the National Technology Day today is that the future economy belongs to technology-driven, or the future who belongs to the technology-driven economy. So I think the so-called economist will also have to be a scientist. Just as a few years back we learned the importance of economical behavior. Earlier it was not so. We thought economist means Arthashastra, jo hisaab kitab janta ho. But then about 4 years back we had a Nobel Prize in economics given to a person who had written a research thesis and published a book on economic behavior, because that is what actually leads to the maintenance and sustenance of economy, how much you spend, how you spend, how well or how badly. And that applies to everything, right from keeping the water tap open when not required to the wastage and the pilferage. So similarly, I think we will be heading into an era where one of the scientists would be getting an award for economics. I can foresee that, era happening, because the future will, to a large extent, belong to technology-driven economy, and we are seeing it right now also. And I think also what is the matter of satisfaction along with that is that along with the technology-driven economy, we have the indigenous innovation. Most of these awards have been received by those who came out with indigenous innovations. Right now also we have at our disposal indigenous innovations in various sectors, but the awareness is lacking. Like other day, about 3 days back, we launched 2 of the equipments for road transport highways. One of them for the blacktop mixing and the other one for pot filling, which is something of world class, but entirely indigenous. But the stakeholders are not aware of it. Similarly, we have started a process of having brainstorming with each of the sectoral ministries so that they can understand what we have. Like the railway ministry did not know that they could prevent the rail accident just simply by the use of space technology to detect an potential obstructing object. We had a series of rail accidents about 2 years back. And that's because we had the technology, we had the indigenous technology, we had the indigenous operators, but since we were functioning in silos. So I think one new glaring development that has happened under Prime Minister Modi is that we have learned to sit with each other, whether we like each other or not. So one reason of silos is also that we are very possessive about our work. Because I think what I am doing is better than him, and I don't wish him to, even smell what I am doing. But I don't realize that if I work in integration with him, and if I really have the capacity and the confidence, my ownership will remain intact. Nobody can deprive me of my ownership if I am confident of my own identity. But the outcomes may be better for each one of us. We learned that even in COVID happening. And also because we are heading for time when we have no other option, it's become essential. I have seen some of those protagonists of allopathic medicine, though I am part of that, who would hate even listening to the word of Ayurveda. They would treat it with such a contempt, or Unani, or this indigenous method. And in the COVID times, I found some of the best medical specialists calling me up and asking me to connect them to the Ayush ministry to get some immunity boosters. But now whether the immunity booster helps or not, because I'm not sure. Of course, we have done plenty of studies where we could prove with evidence that the natural antioxidants are better than the pharmacological accidents. Similarly, if you keep on consuming tablets of vitamin C, it may not be as effective as natural sources of vitamin C. But nevertheless, that realization came when you were faced with a life-threatening catastrophe. So why should we wait for that? If we integrate beforehand, and that is a lesson which has come. And of course, the vaccine, we have the capacity, we have sitting with us somebody like Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, who's been closely associated with the vaccine trials, the first DNA vaccine. So the capacity is there and the innovation talent is there. Now we have to build up innovation ecosystem. So when we talk of innovation ecosystem, obviously and naturally it implies integration of all of us. And as I said, the talent is already there because I was going through the figures. Our STEM graduates are next to China, and we have a huge number of women scientists now. Not only being there by being of gender presence, but being there as leaders, leading even their men folk. So that is the kind of change and transformation that we have had. And as I think Rajesh mentioned that we saw the birth of the 100th unicorn a few days back. And that is also an amazing phenomenon if you give it a thought to the aspect that most of them have happened in the last 1 year and a half year. So not only the base is progress, the graph is progressively on the ascent, the base of the graph has also increased. And that's because we have an enabling atmosphere under Prime Minister Modi. And as Chandrasekhar said, and I'm glad that I made that suggestion when he took over, and we are seriously. To evolve the mechanism of reaching out rather than being reached out. We have this Technology Development Fund. It's doing a very commendable job. We have BIORAC under biotechnology. But most often it is those who come to us. And they know the Rasta who come to us. But there may be others. Yesterday I was in Srinagar, we came across some wonderful work being done. Then the other day we held a Agri-Technocrats program. Some of the self-help groups among women. And now the Department of the CSIR has also come forward with a technology where they can double the produce of apple and also prolong the life of the apple through, of course, not only their technique, we have a CSI technique, we have an atomic energy radiation technique also. And some of the self-help groups, that was last month when I went there, had happily adopted it because they found it profit-making. But they didn't have our support. Now by default we go and own them. That's like, बहू ने अच्छा खाना बनाया था क्या? चुनी किसने थी? मैंने ही खाई थी, मैंने ही ढूंढी थी, चाहे ढूंढ के बेटा ही लाया होगा. लेकिन so that kind of ownership, of course, we